So, starting with you, Daniele, there was much discussion about what innovation means in the context of this competition. What does innovation mean to you, and why is innovation important?
As talked about, I've got, of which this man Lawrence is a member of, we've got something called Innovation Social, and I think when we first started Innovation Social, we asked everyone to give their definition of innovation, and everyone gave a completely different definition, which is part one of the problems. I think, and also within our industry, I get this feeling that innovation's become a bit of a dirty word, because no one knows exactly what it is. But I think if you go to the heart of how people defined it, everyone was saying the same thing. I mean, my words are just saying the same thing, which is, for me, innovation is finding new and better ways to solve business problems as well as opening up opportunities. And why is that important? So put your hand up. How many of you in this room have used Uber in the last week? Okay, how many of you tonight will go home and actually play music using your Sonos app? Okay, I can keep on going on. I mean, Sonos, but there'll be more of you, I bet, in a year. But you can keep on going on. The reality is, technology is moving so fast, and without innovation, we're just not going to get these breakthroughs and these things that we use every day. And I think, to a certain extent, one of the challenges that we have in the advertising industry is I don't think there's enough innovation. The ad industry hasn't moved to the level that we're seeing elsewhere outside. So the awards that actually do celebrate that innovation, I think, are quite important, because actually celebrating the key cases, the things that are coming out, the agencies that are brave enough and have actually managed to convince their clients to actually make a leaf should be celebrated. And I think the one thing I haven't done in that definition, I think it's probably worth just flagging this up, is I haven't used the word technology within that. And I think there is a risk that people just see technology synonymous to innovation. Technology is moving so quickly that a lot of time technology does help facilitate innovation, but it doesn't have to be technology. And I know that certainly what was great about this innovation and the shortlist that we had to go through is there were quite a few cases that didn't necessarily use technology and were using other things.
Nigel or Lawrence, did you have any further thoughts on what innovation means?
Yes, I suppose so. I mean, just listening to what you're saying, really, I think utility is a big part of what innovation is about these days. So I suppose when I first came into the industry, innovation was about new insights and new propositions and new ways of talking to the audience. And I think increasingly that's not true. It's now utility and what you're going to do with this product and use the product for. And most of the case winners, I think, there's utility embedded into what they're trying to do.
Sorry, it's a bit tricky, Sharon.
I've been in innovation 3 months.
Yeah. But we're not using technology for everything. Nigel, going back to you, what do you think about innovation and effectiveness? We asked for innovation that led to business results in this competition. Do you think the entries succeeded?
No, not all the time. I think this is really interesting. There are a couple of cases with amazing business results, and you'll see some of them tonight, I think, where clearly the commercial results were dramatic, and there was no doubt that the campaigns and the products underlying that were the causes of that. But I think because it's an innovative prize category, there are a lot of cases that we saw where it's just a bit too early to really judge whether the campaign had really been commercially successful. And I think you'll see some of the winners tonight where I think it's fair to say we're not absolutely certain how big the commercial success is going to be. We're pretty convinced there is going to be a commercial success, but we haven't seen direct evidence yet. And I think that's just the nature of innovative prizes like this. It's much more difficult to assess the commercial success early on in the process. So, if I was having my time again, I'd slightly rewrite the rules a bit about the effectiveness of the entries. But anyway, we did see some papers where the results were amazing, and anyone would have been really proud of the commercial success.
Daniele, Lawrence, did you have anything to add to that on the effectiveness of these entries? There was a big range of entries in the competition, from very small local campaigns to huge global brand campaigns, and so it made judging quite difficult in terms of judging these hugely different campaigns against each other. So Lawrence, I shall pick on you now. So taken as a group, thinking about this competition, did the entries say anything about where advertising is going as an industry? Were you struck by any themes among the entries?
Yeah, I guess there was actually. There's, for me, and looking at the way our clients are talking to us, there's a couple of themes that have come through really strongly this year. One is the sense of advertising having to do something beyond just marketing products. So one of our clients is Unilever, and Biz Stone a couple of weeks ago talked about Project Sunlight, which is Unilever's kind of master brand piece of work to kind of move beyond selling soap and ice cream. So that sense of marketing going beyond selling things and selling a kind of brand promise of corporate social responsibility, if you want to call it that, came through in a lot of the case studies. And the other has been touched upon already, this idea of utility and product. I bet if I asked people in this room who work in agencies to put their hand up if someone in their agency is now responsible for thinking about products rather than just about advertising or marketing, most people would put their hand up. It's kind of what I spent half of my job or life at Cameron doing, and I think there's some tentative signs that agencies are starting to grasp that. Or certainly that's what came through for me in some of the case studies we judged. And certainly in the awards that were shortlisted, there's a couple of examples of that.
Thank you. I think utility is definitely a recurring theme. We had a WARC event a few weeks ago for the AdMap 50th anniversary, and of all the attendees there voted on what they saw as the best strategy for advertising in the future, and that was voted as utility quite clearly ahead of all the others. And have any of you three have seen some really good examples of that coming out now? And did you see any among the entries of our competition?
I think one of the entries that stood out for me was done in Australia, where they were trying to communicate how widespread their coverage was, and what a great way of actually talking about your coverage going all the way out to sea. And they created some fantastic buoys that actually detected sharks. So in Australia's becoming, there's a real issue with sharks, and shark attacks are increasing. So what the advertising agency did is, rather than come up with messages and 95% coverage or 99% coverage, as a lot of people do, they actually said, well, let's use the fact that you've got this amazing coverage and let's actually build something that's useful. So what they've actually built is the first network of buoys that will tell Coast Guards when there's a shark in it. What a brilliant way of a brand actually getting involved in discussion, and actually what a brilliant way of actually showcasing the product. And I think we were looking at it in terms of it, it's still relatively new, but just in terms of PR, in terms of delivery of PR, but also just showing at the heart of that business. I couldn't think of a better case, to be honest. I thought it was brilliant, and that really showed where I think agencies and brands should actually be focusing a lot of their attention.
I mean, that's a great case history, but that is exactly what I'm talking about, really. So that's a brilliant, innovative case. I would have been really proud to think of that idea for that telecoms company, but it's too early to know whether actually it has achieved its objectives in communicating that this telecom brand has coverage across the whole of Australia. I think it will work, but we haven't seen concrete evidence that it will yet.
Yeah, I think on the other end of the spectrum, if you look at the Lifebuoy case study from Unilever, they've managed to build in the utility, which essentially is in the product. So the Victorian version of Lifebuoy was kind of invented to save lives in Victoria and England, and almost certainly in Western Europe, that kind of product use has become a bit lost because we don't suffer from the same problems we did. But certainly emerging markets such as India do. So they've kind of taken that utility that's built into their product and then done quite an amazing thing, which is their program to get more children to live to 5. So there's an example of, I guess, a combination of CSR and the product that itself has a utility combining. I think I also agree with Nigel. There's a really interesting spread in this year's entries from people who are doing very innovative technology or innovative things with technology, but don't yet have the use case or the numbers to back up how incredible those things might be. And it would be really interesting to revisit something like Clever Boy, which is the one that case study Daniele talked about, next year, to see how those numbers have developed.
Actually, I just had one other point on the Lifebuoy case, which I think that was fascinating, because most of the cases was about innovation, really modern technology-led innovation, but Lifebuoy is about going back to what the brand was about 100 years ago, getting back to the heart of what that brand was invented for, which I think had just been forgotten for the last 98 years maybe, and then resurrected for a new market and made to seem really fresh and innovative and a brand new idea, and that really works. I think that's quite a big lesson for brands, not to ignore what is buried in the heart of the brand when it was originally launched.
We talked, a bit about technology and how that's going to be synonymous with innovation, but there were some among the finalists who had quite basic technology. One of the campaigns that stood out was Kankajura Station, another Unilever campaign using feature phones rather than the latest mobile apps and technology. And there was also several campaigns which were non-profit for charities, which seemed to be a rich area of innovation. Did any of those campaigns particularly stand out for you?
I think the Kanjura Station one's interesting because I'd actually judged on something 2 years ago where they'd used a similar technique. So they'd actually allowed people, it was actually promoting a film, so you used the short code and you had the insight is this whole thing in India is the way you save money is people phone you and you have a missed call and then they call you back. So it's this whole idea of actually getting content through a missed call. And they'd actually done it, they'd actually got famous people to, is you call this number, they'd say there's a missed call, they'd call you back. And all of a sudden they had pre-recorded these famous Indian people actually speaking to you. And what was lovely about it is when I actually saw it, I went, oh wait a second, I've seen this before. And what I thought was fantastic is, yes, they had done something, but what they then did is they then built on that. And I think our industry is too quick on always fixating on the new. And actually, rather than just looking at, okay, that worked, how can I take that to another level? And what they ended up doing is all of a sudden you would call this number, you put the phone down and they'll call you back, and then you start getting it as an entertainment channel. So all of a sudden they'd create an entertainment channel based on something they'd done the year before, which is extremely successful, but made it even more relevant for their users. So for us, I thought that was a brilliant example of someone actually building on something they'd done before.
I'll just restate the Lifebuoy thing really. Innovation doesn't need to be all about modern technology. It can be about finding something that was once really valuable in the brand and resurrecting it. I think they did that really well.
Yeah, I think what we kind of all came to on the judging panel was the desire to avoid the kind of tech tourism that's going on at the moment, which is picking up a new piece of technology, using it quickly, throwing it away and then coming on to something else. And I think the ones that were successful this year were either using technology in a very basic form. So I think any agency in London who'd gone to their client and said, let's do a feature phone campaign, would have got some pretty odd looks. But the innovation in that was still as true as someone using Oculus Rift, and probably slightly more practical. Not that there's anything against Oculus Rift, obviously, but I think you need to be careful with always associating innovation with the latest piece of technology.
Thank you. And finally, I hope some of you here will be thinking about entering the Innovation Prize next year. So do each of you have any tips for the kind of campaigns that do well and the sort of innovation you'd like to celebrate in the industry?
Well, I sort of said it before, really. I mean, you can look for innovation anywhere, but I would just, if I was judging next time round, and I don't know whether I will be or not, but if I was, I would definitely be looking for more commercial success and proof and link back to the campaigns that we saw in some of the campaigns this year. And I would also be looking for innovation in areas where you wouldn't normally expect it. So going back to a brand's roots and resurrecting it is one way I would suggest. There are others as well. It doesn't have to be just about new technology.
If I was going to add one thing, would be to read this year's, it sounds an obvious thing, but read this year's case studies, because the quality of what was entered this year really surprised me. and also the kind of incredible care and depth that the agencies have gone into to enter. So I think the bar's really high. So I would, rather than doing it as a kind of knee-jerk, we must enter that next year, I'd read what's come before you and see if you think you're going to get to that level.
I think I'd say remember what we're in. We're in the world of advertising, and I think what I think our industry does very well is actually human insight and understanding that human insight and building things off the back of human insight. And technology sometimes helps facilitate that, but it's actually the core human insight. And I'll be honest with you, if you can't explain to me in one paragraph why this is why that deserves to be a winner, it's not going to win. I think you can tell within the first paragraph whether it's going to win or not. And if you haven't done that job, and maybe it deserved to win, but you didn't do it in the first paragraph, you're probably not going to win either. So I think really focusing on that first paragraph and exactly what it was, what human insight was, what was the problem you were solving, and putting some results in there, and actually looking at, I would say this to everyone, we do a lot of judging, and I still find it amazing some of the work that actually gets entered. And my advice to everyone is, don't just get one person to read it, get 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 5 people. Give it to people give it to your friends that don't work in advertising to read it. Do they understand it? I think the more people can get it, and there's no point in entering stuff that's not going to win. So I think just being really brutal with yourselves on whether that work really deserves the win.
Thank you so much, Andy. That was very helpful. And thank you all for your thoughtful comments. So I think the word to watch next year is going to be utility. So think about that in your campaigns and future entries, and also appropriate use of technology. But now back to David, and we can talk about some of these winners.
Thank you. Big round of applause for our judges, please.